I'm going to go ahead and call this 2022 Chair's Breakfast to order. It's the solstice, and the fourth day of Hanukkah. Fifth.
I don't know. I
think it's Sunday.
Fourth.
And
Monday.
so we have other holidays coming, so I thought it'd be nice to just note all of that. And I also had a couple of housekeeping items that we need to deal with before we start. So one is the annual report. So raise your hand if you've completed your annual report for your, some people are always the same that way. We need to make sure that we get the annual reports in. And many times it's a chair's responsibility. Fortunately for the select board, it's a clerk's responsibility. However, that meant that I did it last year. So I know what it's like. And Donna McIntosh can tell us a little bit more. She's on the Zoom. So Donna, do you want to give us a little bit of background on this?
Good morning, everyone. So Erin Stevens has been very capably putting the annual report together for a number of years. So I've got some big shoes to fill this year. And so I just wanted to just put in a little reminder to everyone to have your reports in by January 13th. That's a Friday. It's in about 3 weeks now. And I'm here if anyone has any questions or if they need some guidance. And we would also be looking for pictures of your boards too, like the most, accurate one. If you can get one with everyone in it, that's really great.
Group shot or individuals?
Group shot.
You only get one.
You only have so much room. So, yeah, get group shot. And we're just looking for you to capture, the kind of top level highlights of the past year, the things you've been working on. And please reach out if you have any questions, and I'll be sending a couple of reminders as we get a little bit closer to the date.
Okay, thank you. And so again, please give some attention to that annual report. While it seems like a lot of trouble, in the end, the result is very good. And it's not only good for now, it's good for posterity, because you do sometimes need to look back and go, oh, it was back then that we did this, and actually it's quite significant at times. The second item that I wanted to remind people about is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Survey. So I think a note was sent out to the chairs a while back when the survey was first published. And Donna, I'd like if you could resend that reminder.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. So the survey, I just recommend it for two reasons. First of all, we need to get enough responses to get a good statistical sample. It won't necessarily be a representative sample, but it will give at least enough sense of people that either live in Concord or work or visit Concord to get a sense of what people are experiencing in the community. But the other reason I think is that doing the survey itself, just on a personal level, is very helpful and thought-provoking. So I just recommend it as you go through the survey. I think you'll find that you're, looking at, oh, well, actually, have I ever experienced this, or how do I feel about that? And, or how often do I interact with people like that? And so I find that it's just helpful in framing how our community is. And I think just as chairs of boards and committees, and then if you could encourage others, your own board and committee members, but others at large, to take the survey, it would be very helpful for this process. Now I'll hold the comments about the select board's activities, and then we'll start around the room here and talk about the different boards and committees here, and I had a couple of requests for going early, so I will honor those. So Peggy Briggs, would you like to start for the Finance Committee?
Guilty as charged. Well, the FinCom has not met since November 21st, but we had, so we haven't had that much activity since the last breakfast. But we have been, had a very busy month of November, culminating in our vote on 2 of the special town meeting warrant articles. We voted affirmative action, recommend affirmative action on Article 4, which is the sort of funding transfer at the Community Preservation Committee, and has to do with the Junction Village project and moving money around for basically for affordable housing. And we spent a great deal of time and had a extensive and successful hearing on November 17th on the middle school. We went until close to midnight that night. So for those of you that stuck with us, appreciate it. And to cut to the chase, we also voted affirmative action on Article 5 to approve the 7.2 million additional borrowing for the middle school. That vote was 11 yay, 3 nay, and 1 abstention. So it was pretty overwhelming. We spent a lot of time on talking a little bit about the financing term, the impact on taxpayers and the financing terms. We did not spend too much time talking about the design, that not necessarily being our purview once it was presented to us. It's really, we're focused on the 7.2 million. So the impact on taxes for the middle school basically is affected by 3 things. The cost of designing and constructing the building, we know that went up. The second is interest rate, also went up since it was voted a year ago at the last special town meeting. And our assumption at last year's special town meeting was about 2.75% over 25 years. Now we're modeling it at 5%, a little over 5%, and considering a 30-year note. So kind of stretching it out. But the interest rate, we would be paying that interest rate even if we didn't approve additional funding. That would apply to the 103 before we even add the 7. So we're not much we can do about that. It's all of this is out of our control and in the daily paper. So and we also are thinking of going with a level debt, which is a flat level debt like a mortgage rather than starting high and dropping down over time, and that'll basically shave off the front end. Finally, we also are talking about applying funds from stabilization fund that has been created and has funding in it. I just got that. Has funds in it, and that will be not. We'll be discussing that with the town treasurer and of course the board of selectmen over time. Last year, it was estimated that for the median town property, then valued at $971,000, the impact for 25 years of the middle school will be $902. So if your property is less than that, you pay less, more than that. And that's per year, per year. I had someone think this, I was talking about monthly. No, this is per year. So I'm glancing at our finance committee report, which people, if they've already gotten, will shortly get in the mail. Now, this was a triannual revaluation of all town property. The new current median assessed value is 1,117,000. And so we're applying the taxes to a higher average, a median home value. Again, as I mentioned, we're looking at 5.25% over 30 years level debt. The impact of that additional 7.2 million on that higher valued medium home is $73 per year. Again, if your property's worth more than that, it'll be higher. If it's lower, it'll be less. And it's also just worth noting that the amount that we've already authorized is will be 924 on that median, and that is up from the 902, primarily due to the increase in interest rate. Well, due to the increase in interest rate.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, no.
strictly.
Strictly. Our report presents sort of some graphics showing the excluded debt in town declining over a period of time, but needless to say, at least one full generation will be paying for this school. Let's see. So the Finance Committee thought very carefully about this, and there were lots of pros and cons, but I think I can summarize the feeling of the committee. At the end of the day, the cost of not moving forward at this time was much more significant than the cost of moving forward. And we worked very hard not to legislate the previously approved 103,000, not to go backwards on that, but to look at the additional 7.2. And we felt that all things considered, that relatively small impact on taxes. The presentation by the building committee, just talking about the price escalation, redesigning the entire school, the delay and costs associated with that. Because we would still have the authorized 103, we just have to make a school that fit that, which I think we thought would take away some important features in the building. So we did, pardon me? What?
Could wrap up.
Yes, I'm on the last page. So for those reasons, we did vote overwhelmingly to recommend affirmative action on Article 5.
Thanks. All right, and moving now to the school committees.
All right. We did not ask to go first, but anyway.
No, I know, but I think it's a natural transition. It's a natural
Clear my
transition.
name
We're
now.
talking about the school building, now we're talking school committee. And
So we actually are, this is well timed. We had a meeting last night. I think the biggest news at that meeting was the school committee voted unanimously to approve the superintendent's recommended budgets at both the region and at Concord Public. At the region, it's a lot of good news insofar as our budget is at the finance committee's recommended guideline. Their recommended guideline is 2.4%. We came in just, well, we came in at 4%. 2.39, just under.
Yeah.
The trickier story is the budget at Concord Public Schools, where the superintendent's recommended budget does come in at a significantly larger increase at 5.08%. The finance committee's recommended guideline is 3.3%. That represents a delta of like almost $750,000. So we have some work to do there. I don't know if this is relevant or interesting to you, but a lot of this is driven by a really wild explosion, really, of acute mental health needs of students, as combined with significant learning loss and special education driven needs, compounded by the fact too that we do, even though we've brought a lot of our special education programs in-house, we still do have a lot of students whose needs exceed what we're able to deliver at the public schools. So we do still continue to place students out of district, and we're obliged by law to cover those expenses when we can't service their needs in-house. And the state of Massachusetts did authorize private institutions to increase their tuitions 14%. So we absorb those costs. And again, much like Peggy said, a lot of these things are just outside of our control, because special education needs are all heavily regulated and things that we are compelled to deliver, whether we deliver them in-house through our own programs or sending kids out of district. The obligation financially continues to sit in schools. So we know we do have a tremendous amount of work to do to sort of refine those, but the CPS budget, and stay tuned. The other thing that was significant last night, it's below a tier 3 capital project, but we did advance a small backup plan is what I like to call it, warrant article for the select board's consideration to cover costs that would be essentially deferments from the middle school project should our estimates and budgets come in over the 110 million. Specifically, Matt and I both sit on the building committee. At our last meeting on the 15th, we created a list of what are called deduct alternates, meaning if in fact our estimates at the building for the building come in excess of the total project cost of $110 million, our committee considers what we would reduce from the scope. Matt wants me to be timely, so I won't go into all the details of that, but some of the most significant things on that list were athletic fields for a total of $1.5 million, landscaping for $300,000, and a few other smaller things, but those are the whoppers. But I think there's broad consensus that we wouldn't open a school without athletic fields. So they really don't amount to scope reductions. They really amount to deferred costs. So what we discussed last night at the school committee was, is it more responsible to try and say, well, we know what those costs are now. Let's put an article separate and apart from that to cover that. If in fact we get in this apocalypse scenario, or do we do what we've done on some other past projects and say, okay, we'll defer them, not knowing next year, like would the estimates come in at $3 million for those fields, or, you know, $2.5 million. So we're trying to thread the needle of what's most responsible and whatnot, just because I know there's efficiencies to be gained. If you're already doing a project, the cost will obviously be less than if you do it sort of as a standalone. So those were the big things, at least from a budgetary standpoint, and I'll let Tracy talk about some of the more school oriented.
So if you all probably saw the news last week, I'll just start with there was a threat to our superintendent. So we've made some changes to how we're handling meetings. And we will now at our school committee meetings have a police officer present for the time being. And, that will change at some point, hopefully. So I just couldn't not acknowledge that to this group. And the bridge also reported, they reported the entire story if you haven't seen it. So all the details are in there. Our public comment, we had a lively group at our December meeting. So we're bringing back our policy. Well, we're going by our policy, but we have a blue form and a sign-in sheet. It's now necessary at all of our meetings. So if you attend our meeting in person, you'll have to sign in. If you'd like to make public comment, you will fill out the blue form with your topic on it. And we did print just our policy on the public comment form.
And that was long-standing policy and practice before COVID. I mean, I think COVID and Zoom and being at home and now being hybrid sort of upended our ability to properly follow that policy. But I noted last night, we have been back in person for a year uninterrupted. So we felt that we've gotten through the fall in this busy flu and virus season. So we decided now's the right time to go back to our best practices.
And we are still offering hybrid public comment, and we will go between the room and Zoom, and we go every other. So that's just to note for any of you that have public comment at your meetings. Our equity audit, so we've been doing some DEIB work in the schools, and we listened to the select board presentation with the DEI commission. So the town survey is out, but the school has also done its own survey of students, parents, faculty, So we will be getting the results of that on January 17th. So we're really moving along in that realm in the schools. And generally at the region, I guess the only thing I will mention about the budget is we have not met with Carlisle FinCom yet, and that will happen January 11th or 12th. I can't remember the date right now. So there is a significant increase to Carlisle because enrollment numbers have shifted, but we have a regional agreement, and this is kind of part of what we do every year. So it's just that we have more Carlisle kids coming in next year to the high school. And then I would just say generally at the high school in particular, it feels very much back to normal. Our student reps were there last night, you know, the concerts are back, you know, spirit assemblies, everything else. So the high school's feeling pretty great right now.
Okay, thanks. And in fact, I will use that best practice of going back and forth between in-person and Zoom by now calling upon Melissa Maxwell on Zoom, followed by Bob White, just to give you a little heads up of who's next. So Melissa, are you available? Also, if you're on Zoom, if you could add your committee, board or committee name after your name using the rename function, that'd be great.
Great, I'll do that. I am Melissa. I'm from the committee in town. The farms have mostly finished up their main growing seasons now, and we are working a lot on planning our spring forum. Sometime in April, we'll do a public event. We choose a topic. This year will likely be about soil tillage. So we'll do that as our spring event, and we are planning on still working on our Ag Day planning for September 9th.
Okay, thanks. Bob.
Yes, for the Trails Committee, I just wanted to mention that we continue to support our approximately 35 miles of walking trails and conservation lands. And I wanted to bring to your attention one activity that we've recently been through. You may remember that the reformatory branch received quite a bit of attention in the last annual town meeting with Articles 46 proponing a feasibility study for improvements, and somewhat opposing Article 47 promoting pretty much the opposite of leaving the trail in its natural state. The outcome of that was identifying some spot areas of the trail that needed improvement without making a major overhaul of the whole trail. While no action has been taken so far, we continue to support the trail and take care of it. And I wanted to mention that week before last, there was a volunteer project in the Butternut Circle area where there's a consistent flooding problem, coordinated by Bill Robichaud, who's the steward. He was able to secure 11 volunteers. They included both Great Meadows volunteers and Concord volunteers. And interestingly, among them were Phil Posner, who brought Article 46, and Mark Galis, who brought Article 47 to the town meeting, all working together for the purpose of making the trails good for people to walk and bike on, working in the mud in some pretty cold weather, making sure that the trails are kept in good condition for everyone to use. That's just one example of the kind of activity we're involved in all the time, and I thought I'd bring that to your attention this morning.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks very much. That's a very nice story. So now I'll switch over to Carmen, our town moderator. We have a lot going on relative to both a special town meeting and annual town meeting. So take it.
Thank you very much, Matt. So we'll start with special town meeting. As Peggy mentioned, the Finance Committee report for special town meeting has been completed. If you haven't received it in the mailbox yet, it is posted on the website. And I highly recommend it. They've done a careful analysis on the middle school that's in there. For special town meeting, we have draft motions due on January 9th. So anybody who's got an article that they're sponsoring, meeting warrant, we need your motions by January 9th. And those should go to TM submissions@concordma.gov. On Thursday, January 12th, and we're still working on the time for that, but on the 12th, there will be the moderators coordination meeting for presenters at special town meeting. And we'll do that on Zoom, and we'll let all of the article sponsors know exactly when that will be held. And that's an important meeting, so we get out of our silos and we all understand what the meeting is going to look like overall. And we'll do time assignments for presentations and discuss the order. There will be 2 articles you'll see in the Finance Committee report. There will be 2 articles advanced on a consent calendar, and those will be Articles 1, which is the fossil fuel infrastructure confirmation of authorization to participate in that demonstration project. Town meeting's already dealt with that in the past. We put that on the consent calendar. And the transfer of the Community Preservation Act funds that were appropriated for the Junction Village project, which are now going back to the Community Preservation Committee Reserve Fund for Affordable Housing, since that project was canceled. Still, any 10 people can take either of those articles off the consent calendar for full deliberation if they want to, and we'll be talking about that at the meeting. Okay, so, and special town meeting is January 19th. The snow date is January 20th. And that's at CCHS. And I should note that, you know, we've got this triple virus thing going on with RSV, the flu, and COVID. And boy, it's around. I did a big family trip, and 3 people came back with COVID. So, you know, it's just around. So what we will do to make sure that the people who are feeling vulnerable because they're older or immunocompromised still feel like they can come to town meeting and participate, we'll use both the auditorium and the gymnasium, and we will require masks in the auditorium. Masks will be optional in the gymnasium, but everybody who wants to be in a masked environment will have one. In the auditorium. I was asked whether we were going to vote from our cars again. I don't think we're going to be in desperate enough circumstances to do that, but we'll make a real-time decision if we end up with a terrible spike in hospitalization rates by the time of special town meeting, so that it seems like that's necessary as an option, but right now it doesn't seem to be necessary, and it'll be a lot harder with 5 articles than it was with 1. So we're gonna try and do it this way. So appreciate everybody's flexibility as we try and figure out the latest curveball we're being thrown in the public health arena. Now on to annual town meeting. Warrant closes on January 4th. So if you got an article you don't have in, you need to be aware of that deadline. On the
4 p.m.
At 4 p.m. Thank you very much. And the select board will be voting the order of the warrant articles on the 9th. And then we'll be reviewing the articles with town council, and the warrant will, and so anyone who's got an article in, you know, if there are edits that town council is recommending, will be in touch with you. And then the warrant will go to the printer on the 25th of January. And then when it comes back, it'll be mailed off to households. The hearing cycle, 5 hearings, the hearing cycle starts Monday, the 27th of February, and they'll all be hybrid meetings, both Zoom and in person. And I'm going to stop there with the, and the last of the hearings is March 15th. So I'm going to stop there with the schedule for annual town meeting, and I'll see you again and remind you of where we are on that schedule then.
Okay, thanks. And next will be Stephanie Trobach here in the room, but I also wanted to give a heads up to Jill Block and David Carr on Zoom that they will be up next
Thanks,
after
Matt.
her.
That's a question.
Yes.
The
January 12th coordination meeting, what is the timing on that? Because
Yeah, you
so
know,
we don't interfere with our own committee meeting.
right, it'll either be 8 AM or 5 PM.
Thank you.
Okay, Stephanie.
Chair of Concord Housing Authority. We are fully staffed, thankfully. That was a big deal for us. So it's nice to go into the new year with a full team in place. We broke ground on the Commonwealth Avenue home on November 30th, and it's being excavated now. And we're hoping to have a 2-bedroom, single-family little home built by the fall. We also have a rehab going on at Thoreau Street and at Bedford Street. Also, we have ARPA monies, American Rescue Plan from the federal government that we're using to redo some porches that are in pretty bad shape at Everett Gardens. What else can I tell you? We had a handful of audits and performance reviews by the state and did very well. Handful of operational things we need to tackle, but otherwise in good shape. Just have a handful of holiday things to attend this week, including the high school concert that a handful of our residents are attending.
Okay, thanks so much. Jill?
Hi, good morning, everybody. As Carmen was saying, COVID is definitely out there. All of those infectious diseases are out there, respiratory ones. And so, people have been asking at the Board of Health, at the Health Department, whether we're going to reinstitute mask mandates. I don't think there's much of an appetite for that, but I strongly suggest that you start doing that in crowds again. We also at the Health Department have a lot of test kits available. If anybody needs test kits, please.
Uh-oh.
In July, which means that the federal government has said that they're good for 6 months, so they expire next month. So please go and help yourself to some free ones. And also please spread the word to get boosted. If you haven't already, especially seniors and immunocompromised folks, it's really important. And a lot of people aren't getting the message that, it's not necessarily going to keep you from getting sick, but it's going to keep you from getting hospitalized and hopefully from getting much worse. So really, really need to get that word out there. There's no accurate data anymore. I mean, I could tell you what the rates are saying, but it's only what gets reported to the state. And so there's no value in that information other than to say that rates are going up. Also, I was really heartened. I mean, the other thing that we were seeing in rates of going up are on mental health and behavioral health issues. And we are getting reports of that from a lot of places. And the Health Department is starting to look into what can we as mostly a regulatory department be doing more on a qualitative prevention side. So there's going to be more about that at a later point. And I actually have to run. So thank you, Matt, for letting me sneak in right now. And I've got to go. That's it for now. Thank you all.
All right,
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Okay, David Carr up next.
David Carr, Board of Assessors. So the assessors are, I guess, bracing for the abatement season. And we did look at the overlay, which I had thought we were very comfortable with the amount of money that was in the overlay account, and now it looks like it's near the low end of our comfort zone. So we're going to be monitoring that.
Yeah, let me just, for the purposes of people that don't have the whole context. So the Board of Assessors the assessing department operates a overlay fund that is used to cover abatements, and then they can declare some aspect of that fund to be excess. And in fact, we've already done that once in order to fund the stabilization fund for the middle school. And so the idea there is if we have extra money sitting around, we're not going to use for abatements, we could potentially deploy it to reduce this tax impact of the middle school. So the select board had requested that we have an article to have maybe some more of that abatement or money redeployed for the stabilization fund, seeing the current balance. And the Board of Assessors met and has not yet declared anything surplus. So we don't have any surplus to take at this point. So there, sorry, Dave.
Yeah, and to clarify, I mean, we had, I think we had originally considered up to $1.5 million, and we did release $1 million. So
Right, back last year.
we've done most of the original request. We're just not quite sure about how much further we can go.
Yeah, okay. And then also
And
the
it's
select
still-
board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still looking
Go
at the
ahead.
presidential exception.
okay,
So I think we'll be talking about that again.
yeah, okay,
Matt, may I add one thing about special town meeting?
Sure.
I just want to note that there will be childcare at special town meeting. I don't think everybody's aware of that, so please do spread the word. It is necessary to sign up in advance so that the rec department who runs it will know to have enough staff.
okay.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. And then the select board did approve the rate with the meeting with the Board of Assessors, the $12.96 per thousand. So we now have a lower property tax rate, but as everybody realized,
Yeah.
there also is higher property values. So your tax bill will not be going down as a consequence of this.
And some will be going up more than others because of the revalue here. A lot of values have changed, and some of them. So
And that's why we expect potentially more abatements this year. So.
But
yeah.
the tax rate and the make it up on valuation, that should not make your tax go up.
On
Not
average, you're right.
Or
not-
On average,
Till
on
town
average,
meeting when we vote a higher tax
That's right.
levy.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
no, on average, we'll be seeing a moderate tax increase. As was voted by town meeting, but I'm talking about some individuals. Individual houses may go up or down. So some people
Okay.
won't much increase, and some people will see more. It's
Okay, thanks. Rob, would you like to go next? And then I'll have Sharon go next in the room.
Hi, Robin Norton. This is my first breakfast as the new chair of the Public Celebrations Committee. We've had a very successful Veterans Day program up at Sleepy Hollow. We assisted the rec department and working with CPD and CFD with the parade portion of the tree lighting ceremony, and I think that went very well as well. We've already sent out invitations for Patriots Day. And we've submitted to the town updates to the website with the honored citizen ceremony, which is tentatively 19 March. That is like our singular date that can move potentially because it's obviously the availability of these selected honored citizens. If they have a planned trip to Europe or something, they can't make it. Well, then obviously at point have a ceremony for them that they can't be at. So that's like our one day throughout the year that's maybe subject to change. So we're going to meet in January first week, and we're going to divvy out responsibilities for Miriam's Corner, Patriots Day, Dawn Salute, and Memorial Day. Again, those are kind of the same thing every year. Obviously, Miriam's Corner is going to be the Saturday prior to Patriots Day. Patriots Day parade and ceremonies on the holiday Monday itself. Dawn Salute will be on the 19th itself. They sometimes coincide, but not often. And Memorial Day is on Memorial Day. So
When's the deadline for submitting honor citizen applications?
I don't have that. I won't say it's early February, early mid-February. It's in the submission. I'll get that.
Okay, and then there's a form online that they can get. So it's just something to note that, this honored citizen tradition that we have in town. I don't know if you've seen the plaque at the hearing room, but we do honor a citizen in town each year or two. And it's just a great thing. If you have knowledge about somebody that should receive such an honor, feel free to submit an application.
And in some years we have a lack of, so we don't have that many submissions. We've had to go back to prior years. So obviously we'd love to have them.
Yeah, and that's why I was trying to highlight it. I think that it is, there are clearly many deserving citizens in town. So, okay. Sharon.
Sharon Jones, Comprehensive Sustainability and Energy Committee. I don't have a lot to report. Our last meeting, we did not have quorum. We had a joint meeting with CAB, who also did not have quorum, but we did get to meet our new Sustainability Director. And we'll be
Eric Sims,
Eric Sims, thank you.
who's on board. So it's great to have a sustainability director. Okay, and then I'm going to move back to the online and have Ed Nardi speak, and then David DeLong.
Good morning, Ed Nardi on behalf of the NRC. Not too much to add. For the most part, all the applications have been fairly straightforward. Small house additions, deck additions, landscaping, etc. Let's see, we did approve Concord Academy's new building last hearing. And some good news to report, Delia Kay has hired an assistant director. She and her staff have been working kind of shorthand for the better part of a year. So that is certainly good news on that side of the equation. And that is it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So David DeLong.
Here we go. Good morning. Dave DeLong, Public Works Commission. I'll try to keep this short. We postponed a decision on an appeal for a variance to a sewer and water connection from an owner in West Concord because we need more, the commission needs more information from DPW to make the decision. It's a pretty complex appeal to a design standard. One interesting thing from a more townwide perspective is the roads program update, shows that we have a pavement quality index program going on now, which has really graded all the roads in the town, and it gives us real data on the definitive investment needed to sustain the roads and indeed improve the roads where needed over time. So given all the other weighty issues on the town's agenda right now, I can only say that there's, over the years, we're going to have to be investing a little more in the roads to make sure they come back, or we at least keep them where they are today. It's giving us some really good data on that. And finally, all the articles on the April town meeting for the CPW will be in the consent calendar. So we're low maintenance in that department.
The roads are high maintenance, but the DPW is low maintenance.
Right.
Actually, I wanted to note that we reviewed the town manager's budget proposal, and which is within guideline, I believe. But one of the concerning points there was that the recommended amount that we're going to need to spend on roads is higher than what we still have budgeted. So we're still not quite catching up. And the condition of the roads has declined because we spent much less during the COVID period on that infrastructure than we had in the past. Okay, so now I'm going to move to Carlin and Keith in the room.
Carlin Reed, I'm the chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee. As a citizen group that helps oversee and monitor and comment on the TV station, Minuteman Media Network. Three things quickly. First, we're working with the Council on Aging to get a dedicated time slot for Council on Aging programming. I attended the COA meeting last night, and that's something that we've decided that we can do as a team building project, is to give them a time slot for Council on Aging programs. They're getting more into video now, which is good. Second, at the next meeting we have, which is January 5, we have our consultant coming in to talk to us about the needs assessment plan, the schedule. We're going to finalize that. We've got a plan right now to have 2 focus groups in mid-May after town meeting to get input on how Comcast is doing. So that'll be mid-May. And then we're also going to do a townwide survey about reaching out to folks for input on how Comcast is doing, because that's part of the franchise renewal process, our contract between the town of Concord and Comcast to provide TV service. And the third thing, it's actually a question from Matt. And
Okay.
I usually do this to you, sorry. March 23rd is the date of expiration, as I understand, for allowing committee members to participate by Zoom. Now, I don't know what the status is on that Zoom capability, but can we at least have the town continue to offer a Zoom for the people who want to watch the committees?
Yeah, so I assume that we would continue to offer that, but that, and then I think we have made sent a letter requesting the extension of the, the COVID era remote participation. I don't know the status of the discussions at the state level at this point. Yeah, and I think we're probably, and we're probably, at the mercy of whatever they come up with, which they'll probably come up with March 25th.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, Keith.
Thanks very much. Keith Bergman, Chair with the Concord Housing Trust. I think that the answer on the question of remote meetings is going to come from a new legislature and a new governor who gets seated next month. So
yeah.
Hopefully that'll be realistic. First, I want to thank the Select Board and the Planning Board for unanimously approving the housing production plan update, which many of the housing groups and the public have been working on for some months now. That our housing production plan had expired in 2021. We want to have an up-to-date plan approved by the state. It goes next to the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development for approval, and I think it's an excellent roadmap of where we hope to be in addressing affordable housing, not only with public funds, but also with regulatory measures that the town might make. And I thank the Select Board for their leadership, because there's going to be an enormous amount of coordination that's necessary among disparate groups, and appreciate the Select Board stepping forward to help us implement that plan. Among the things that are in the plan, that there are things that are particular interest to the trust, because it deals with funding, future funding for our board. First off, there are two articles that haven't been mentioned yet that are on the warrant for the January 19th special town meeting, which seek to reauthorize home rule legislation for a real estate transfer fee and a building permit surcharge as dedicated funding sources for the trust long term. So that's one thing. Then for the annual town meeting on April 30, where the trust is requested, and the Community Preservation Committee and the Select Board are agreeable to having some $2 million in funds that's already been appropriated by the town for the now defunct project of Christopher Heights at Junction Village. That money already appropriated, we are asking be transferred into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so it can be spent on other projects as things arise. And the top priority there is Assabet River Bluff. In the short term, we're also looking at something being done at some point with the 12-acre site at Junction Village that's also in the plan, as well as other opportunities that come up. So we appreciate the support and are glad to be moving forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll move to the last two that are on Zoom, and then we have three here left in the room for the finale. First, we'll have Mark Hansen, and then Dan Drazen of the CHDC. Actually, let's move with the CHDC first, because that's a good segue from Keith, and then we'll move to Mark.
Okay. Great. Good morning, everyone. In terms of the Concord Housing Development Corporation, we have been focused on the Assabet River Bluff project. Just to refresh everyone's memory, this is a 7-acre parcel right next to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and 6 acres of it has been set aside as conservation land. The remaining 1 acre is going to be developed into 5 units of affordable housing. There's 2 units existing, and we're proposing 3 additional units as single-family homes. So we've been working with a site civil engineer here in town to come up with a site plan, and we have something that we're ready to share with the community. So the first quarter of next year is really going to be about engaging with the community and getting folks' input on the site plan and on our proposed program for the Assabet River Bluff project. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. And Mark.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. I'm currently dealing with COVID myself for the first time since this all started. And so I encourage everybody to be careful. I go around with a mask on all the time, but anyway, the pollinator committee is meeting, and we, of course, as we know, we're collaborating with the group at Sudbury Valley Trustees. There's a watershed area that's working on pollinator health, as well as we're open to collaboration too with Sustainable Belmont, which has done a great mapping job of pollinator gardens in the watershed of the Mystic Rivers and the Charles Rivers. So that the Sudbury Valley group is working on the Suasco watershed, which is, the Sudbury, Assabet, and Concord River watersheds. It's 36 towns. We're working on mapping the existing pollinator gardens in Concord and helping people improve native plantings and provide habitat for pollinators. And we're also preparing. We're thinking about, we're modifying our charge. You probably know about this, but the original idea of the committee, I guess, was a sort of a 1 day shot, or not 1 day, 1 year or 2 year shot at looking at the dangers of neonicotinoids. That continues to be something we're concerned about, because we still need to have a better feeling for where neonicotinoids are going down on the ground in town. But also, we're also looking at developing pollinator habitat. And so that's where the mapping comes in, and that's where we've done some help with some planting. So I'm sure you've heard about these things. And that's about it.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, so now moving to the room, back to the room, Jean Goldsberry. I don't see maybe we need to open up a chair for you at the table here. Yeah, this will work. Well, actually, yeah, Peggy said that one was working great, but there we go.
Thank you, Matt. Jean Goldsberry, Commission on Disabilities. At our last meeting, there were two main topics that we discussed. One is the ongoing safety concern for Junction Park as bikes on the rail trail go through Junction Park. And we're trying to collaborate with the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail group to think about ways to calm the traffic as it's going through Junction Park. If there's a collision between a bicycle and a pedestrian, it's not going to go well for either one. So we're talking about in the spring placing some planters and doing a trial run before planters are permanently placed or semi-permanently placed in the park, so that we can see what seems to work, what's not working. We want people to be able to travel through there safely, whether they're riding or walking. The other issue that we discussed at quite a bit of length was the crosswalk on Sudbury Road by the library, between the Stowe Street parking lot and the library. That's it goes to one of the accessible entrances of the library, and it's dark and cars go fairly fast. Well, it's dark at night. And we're wondering if it might be possible to get a crosswalk light that would just allow pedestrians to turn it on, like there are crosswalk lights at the rail trail crossings. So we're exploring that right now.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thanks
you.
very much, Jean. So now moving to the historical corner of Concord. Yeah, let's go ahead with the historical commission first. So Melissa can go first.
Okay, so I'm Melissa Sawfield, representing the Historical Commission. Just want to say that at our last month, we had a couple demolition delay hearings that we imposed on both properties. This is in the Prairie Street neighborhood, which was developed really for reformatory housing. That wasn't when the prison was first being developed. We also, in terms of membership, we had a resignation on the commission, Rebecca Maytree, and we have voted Laura Hanley to be a full member, and a new associate member is Nancy Frizella Lee. We continue to refine the rules and regulations of the scenic roads bylaw. That's going back and forth between us and Public Works and eventually to the planning board. And also we continue to monitor the project on Route 2A Battle Road. One of the members of the commission, I had an interesting conversation with the National Trust for Historic Preservation in Washington last week. The Concord Historical Commission has been probably the most outspoken on behalf of the integrity of that road. Also, we will be submitting an amendment to the demolition delay bylaw for town meeting. This is the annual town meeting, which changed the review period from the current 45 days to 60 days to be consistent actually with what the HDC does, and also acknowledging that the new paper of record, which is the Concord Bridge, has an earlier publication date.
Okay, thanks so much. Luis.
Luis Perspective, Chair of the Historic Districts Commission. Many very interesting applications have been considered. We have now a much greater information about the historic references of their sites that we are considering, and that we have to give credit to our new town planner, who has been very active in obtaining those references. We continue to have a little bit of a problem with membership, but we were able to get two of the main nominating entities, which were the Concord Public Library and the Select Board and the Planning Board, to submit highly qualified candidates for the Select Board, and we're waiting a Select Board appointment of those candidates. We continue to work in streamlining the appointment process, which I have discussed in this forum before. And we will be approaching all 5 nominating entities, which of course includes the Select Board, which nominates and appoints 2 members of the commission, to hear their opinions and feedback on those proposed measures. The purpose of that is just to be able to appoint the most qualified people to the most senior positions, and to maintain a fluid and dynamic flow of membership at the lower levels, so they can be promoted up in the shortest possible time.
Okay, thanks very much. So actually, the Select Board has not spoken. So I just wanted to first note that there is a coffee reception commemorating the last day of work for our police chief tomorrow at 8 a.m. at the police station. So you're invited to go and say goodbye to Chief O'Connor. Also, just it's kind of fun to take a look around our police station. I think you might get a sense of why it's on our longer term list for replacement as a facility. So then the other things I wanted to note were just a few things that we've done recently. I think there was some mention that, of course, we approved the housing production plan, a great piece of work. We approved the reassessment for the town and the new tax rate. We reviewed the personnel study task force report, which had a number of very important recommendations, and met with the personnel board to discuss the implementation, and the personnel department to discuss the implementation of those. And we will be meeting again with them in March to decide on implementation efforts. And then we met with the DEI Commission at our most recent meeting, and we will be acting on some of their recommendations going forward for training, and hopefully we'll engage all towns, boards, and committees in training if possible, as well as the Select Board, and then the survey, which I mentioned earlier. And then there are budgetary interests for getting funding to pursue more explicit DEI efforts in the town. And meanwhile, in parallel, Carrie LaFleur is initiating a strategic process with her staff to get town staff oriented around DEI. And then we reviewed Carrie LaFleur's capital plan and town budget at our most recent meeting, and like I said, it's at the guideline, and there are a number of great initiatives that we'll discuss later. related to that as we approach town meeting. So thanks very much. We're at 9:01. So
Good.
thanks for your time this morning. Oh, it wasn't me.
Oh, well, it was you.